Hey everyone, welcome back to another Stock Market Outlook video brought to you by DFew. As always, we're going to run through the market indexes, leading stocks, and leading themes. And there's a ton to talk about this week. We, of course, on Wednesday, after the Fed announced they'd be cutting rates again, we were down 3.6% in just one day. And then here on Friday, we had a little bit of a positive sign, upside reversal action, and a close just below that 21 EMA. So there's a lot to cover today, and we'll get really in depth with things. And of course, talk through Tesla, NVDA, Reddit, A-Lab, and a bunch of other key leaders like PLTR. But first, I do want to mention that, as I mentioned, this is brought to you by DFew. This is my daily driver for screening, charting, watchlist management, alert management, the works. And it's the best platform for CanSlim, growth stock, position traders, and swing traders. We currently have a special offer for the holidays. You can try 3 months of DFew for only $50. That's the lowest price we've ever offered. So you can click the link down below in the description to check that out. Highly recommend it. Give us a shot. We've got thousands of traders, and you can join them and see all the great perks and special features, including performance charts, heat maps, bubble charts, a lot of unique features that help you find and identify great trades faster and more easily, as well as specific and proprietary indicators like RMV that exists nowhere else. So go ahead and check us out. Again, the link is down below in the description. So let's go back to the market monitor here. And first things first, as always, I like to take a look at the indexes. I do kind of a hybrid approach of top down and bottoms up analysis. Some people like to stick with one or the other. I like kind of meeting in the middle and seeing if my top-down analysis matches or confirms or contradicts my bottoms-up analysis, and just kind of, I think it's the best of both worlds to see both perspectives and see what the stocks are doing as well as what the larger indexes and sector ETFs are doing as well. But looking at the QQQ, we, of course, going into this week, we're trending really nicely. Since the election, we've been on pretty much a tear. And then we had this nice inside day to end last week, or actually this was Monday actually this week. We had a nice inside day to start the week. We were a little bit short-term extended from that 10 EMA as well as the 50 SMA. If we go ahead and measure here, we were about 6 to 7% above the 50-day, and that to me is getting a little bit stretched. Actually, if we go over to the extension monitor and switch to a 50-day here, look SMA length, and then look back period of 250, this actually tells you objectively what we were seeing here in terms of the extension. What this indicator does is it basically, you pick a specific moving average length and then a look back period to train the data on. And then what it will do is plot the relative measured extension from that moving average based on historical extremes. And this danger zone right here is when you want to be potentially selling some into strength. This is kind of when corrections can start on the index. And then on the bottom here, this is when, base bottoms form, all of that. So that's when you want to be, more on the lookout for actually potential longs and just looking for stocks showing relative strength that could potentially lead the next cycle. But you can see here into the end of next week and early this week, we were just showing up in that danger zone. So that's just something to be aware of. That doesn't mean you got to sell everything. You just want to be a little bit more cautious because you might be, you just want to be aware that a day like this could happen in the near future, and you want to be prepared and know your plan for a day just like this. So going back to, let's go back to market monitor here. There we go. So this day right here, obviously very negative. We broke below the inside day. That's your first warning sign. Broke below this low. That's your, second warning sign. This should be, at least built around that low. But then we broke all these lows, broke the 10 EMA. That's when you really want to be stepping aside or just becoming a lot more cautious and sticking with the names you have great cushion on. This type of bar doesn't happen too often, but it can often lead to the start of corrections and major corrections at that. If we go back and look at, just to use a stock example, NVIDIA, these type of reversal bars when we're extended might not be the immediate start of a correction, but they can kind of signal the start of one. We've got one here, we rally a bit, we get another one here, and that really leads to this sell-off here. So those type of bars are just something to be aware of and are kind of a shot across the bow that maybe should let you know, hey, take some profits, cash out on your weakest performers, stick with the ones you have great confidence, great conviction, and great cushion in, as well. But anyway, after this bar here, we get a slight gap up and then also a rollover to end the day near the lows, again suggesting selling. And at this point, we've gone from extended to the upside to almost extended to the downside, at least in the very short term. After a bar like this, after another sell bar, it's very rare, or it's going to be a very weak market where we get another sell bar, or at least we'd form kind of an inside day, rally a little bit, and then roll over. But what do? We gap down and then have a positive expectation breaker because we immediately rally strongly, push through this low. That's an oops reversal. Push through that low, push all the way above this high, and then we do ultimately kind of fade, roll over to end of the day. But overall, this is a positive in the context that we still might be in a short-term downtrend. We're still below a declining 10 EMA, still below a declining 21 EMA, but we remain above a longer-term rising 50 SMA and rising 200 SMA, and we're still above or right above this key spot as well as this key pivot. So again, this still kind of puts the caution sign up, an orange light, and just want to be a little bit more wary. But a day like this, especially how the leaders acted, and we'll take a look at them in just a second, is definitely a positive sign and suggests that this might be more of just a short-term pullback that got washed out very quickly versus something that's going to be a lot more extensive right here. Now, personally, I would actually like to see this chop last for 1, 2, maybe 3, 4 weeks. And the reason being is that a lot of the leaders that, everybody knows already, Tesla, PLTR, app, they've come very fast, very far, and, have already run up quite a bit. And a base right now for those names would be very constructive and set up the next leg up a little bit more comfortably and with maybe a lot more oomph than just, a grind higher like they've been doing, where they've been trending nicely, but they're short-term extended and not giving kind of any other spots to get in, to add, all of that. So I'd actually like to see some consolidation here above the 50 SMA, chopping around the 21 EMA, setting up a nice tight area, and then a pop back through. But from this point, we have to be very open-ended. Or open-minded rather. We could rally immediately. That's probably doubtful. We'll probably chop around and form some ranges, move up, move lower, move higher finally. Or it's still possible that we break below the 50 and ultimately have a test at the 200-day moving average. This Friday by no means with certainty means the pullback's over. It's just a little bit of evidence that says the leaders are acting really well. It might be just a shorter term pullback, but we always have to consider every possible scenario. All right, so with that said, let's take a look at the IWM as well. This gives you more of a sense of small caps, and this got hit a lot harder, and it was actually kind of leaking lower and underperforming the mega caps for quite some time. And this looks more like a bear flag here, and the expectation with this, even though we had a good Friday, is continuation lower, maybe a test of the 200-day moving average, but we'll see if we get a positive expectation breaker and rally strongly and start maybe a move up towards the moving averages. But this still looks like the left-hand side of a base to my eye. Looking at IBIT to get a sense of Bitcoin, this is below the 21 EMA. We again had a sharp pullback here. We're at that 21 EMA. We're starting to build something here. So if we can build out here against these lows and then recover here, that would be a great sign. And Bitcoin names like MSTR, Coin would be names to watch closely in that respect. But right now we're still in a short-term pullback, and we'll have to see what happens with this ETF. Looking at NVDA, this has been correcting really since back in early November. Slowly, gradual correction. It wasn't able to push out of this base with oomph, but we're potentially actually setting more of a bottom here. This is actually kind of more advanced within the market cycle than the index itself. We had a nice outside day, really good close today as well, but semiconductors overall have been relatively weak, and we'll see if this can push up without a market doing that well or the semiconductors at large doing that well. Apple, really nice action today, just trending beautifully above the moving average. Google, strong action. This is one that has had a recent catalyst here with I think some of their quantum computing chips. And also there's news about AI and robotics and that type of thing. So there's potential N factors here, and it's been acting really well, holding that 10 EMA. Anything pretty much holding the 10 EMA right now or popping above the 21 EMA is showing relative strength right now and should be a stock worth taking note of looking deeper into the story, into the growth to consider for your overall watch list. Amazon holding the 21 EMA, so showing decent RS right now. Microsoft a little bit weaker. Meta probably the weakest of the bunch. Not a great day today. We tried to rally and then faded and closed low in the range, but potentially short-term oversold. We'll have to see what happens if we get a positive expectation breaker early next week, or if this is just the start of a longer-term pullback and basing period. Tesla as well, pulling back, tried to move higher, but then faded end of the day. It's right near the all-time high, or the prior all-time high set all the way back in 2021. So that could be a key level to play against, and we'll see how it builds and respects that as well. Going to performance charts, this is basically a key feature in DeFi, which is pretty cool, where you can plot any subset list that you want, or screen if you'd like as well. And I made basically a watch list of key ETFs, so I can see how they perform on a daily basis as well as on a 20-day basis to see what's leading, what's lagging today, as well as over the past month. And you can see the results right here. RQ, K, W, and X are kind of leading over the past 20 days or so. It was IBIT for quite some time, but that had, of course, a significant pullback. And then, of course, over here on the daily, a lot of stuff rallied today. We've got TAN in there. Sedge actually, it's in a longer-term downtrend for sure, but is showing RS in the very short term. We still got blockchain doing okay, as well as the ARK funds right there. Software as well, definitely a key theme I'm watching pretty closely, and that's been holding up relatively well. Going to the heat maps is another key feature of DeFi. Like with the performance charts, you can basically select whatever subset screen or watch list that you want and plot it on a custom heat map, which has one data point controlling the data point itself, the color, and then another one controlling the size of the square. I like using price percent change from the open and then relative volume to see on a daily basis what stocks are standing out. And immediately we've got PLTR, Sedge, RKLB, Hood, Sezzle, LMND, VST. If you look at all these charts and you can click them, and we've got a chart linked here right here, you can see that they're showing a very strong RS relative to the rest of the market just in the short term. MSTR, nice rally today off the 50-day moving average. RKLB holding up well above that all-time high. So it's really cool how this is linked to the chart and you can easily click through. And this is almost a different way to scan visually versus having to, look through a bunch of data columns, tap through a bunch of charts. It's just kind of another time saver. That's pretty cool. And I like to look at the DeFi leader to see what's standing out, and then also switching this over to the S&P 500 to see what's standing out right here. Dexcom acting pretty well. Dollar Tree pushing higher. So this is a way to kind of get a sense of the themes. You've got semiconductors acting well, MU, KRVO, FSLR, another solar name, up a bunch today. So this is a kind of way to do a bottoms-up approach and get a sense of the themes that are acting pretty well. So that's kind of enough of that. I do want to kind of dive into the individual stocks now. So let's go over to the screener, and then let's bring up on this screen. Actually, first, I want to talk through a little bit about how I'm looking for relative strength during this pullback, because those names are likely to lead and act well when the market pressure lessens, especially if this is a short-term pullback. If this is a more extensive correction, the names showing RS right now might ultimately fail and roll over. But if it's more of a short-term pullback, those can be the names that pop the furthest when the market pressure lessens. We saw that a little bit with PLTR, as well as ALAB and Reddit. These are all stocks that, were definitely showing RS holding near the 10 EMA, the prior day and the day before, the day yesterday. And they were showing RS already. And then immediately today, when we see some market pressure lessen, they're popping up 5%, 6%. And I think in PLTR's case, 14% from the prior day, and then from the open a lot further than that. So that's why we want to be tracking names with RS. And now that it's the end of the week, there are a few different ways that you can do this really easily. First, of course, you can go ahead and use the weekly closing range. So we've got weekly closing range, which is basically if you go to a weekly chart, where the stock closed within the range from high to low. So this one's about a third of the way up. If we bring up this one is about 61%. You can see that right there. We've also got that visual of the bar that kind of updates in real time. This one is going to be right near the top. It's got a 96% range right near the high. Then we've got this one, 33%. Let's find one really low. We've got this one, 5% of its range. So this gives you a sense on the week how strong the stock was relative to the rest of the market. If we bring up the QQQ, on a weekly, this is about a 33% closing range. So if we go back to this list, if we go ahead and sort by this column, you've got ones with 100% closing range. PLTR, very strong on the week, acting much better than the market. This one as well, 98%. Tiva, 92%. So there's a way to go through, and obviously you have to always consider the overall chart pattern, but on the week, they were showing relative strength. Docs, a really nice, actually, opportunity this week. TNDM, GEV acting nicely within this tight flag. Definitely a name on my focus list next week. But if you go down here, you've got names that acted a lot worse than the market. We had Tesla pulling back, but it was kind of short-term extended. We have this one, CalM, Asana. So these are names that on a closing range basis underperformed the rest of the market. So they weren't quite as supported as other stocks as well. Another way to do that, especially considering the market is right near the 21 EMA, is you can set up a column that is price percent change from the 21 EMA. And then the names that are above the 21 EMA and are highest to lowest on that, again, are showing relative strength. PLTR, 14% above the 21 EMA. Let's go back to the daily here. 14% above this key moving averages. ALAB acting nicely. So anything positive above the 21 EMA when the market is below it is showing some type of relative strength, while the names, just under it are still okay. But the names far below it are getting hit a little bit harder than the market in the short term. So that's another way that I'm looking for relative strength. You can, of course, also just use a 1 week relative strength ranking. We've got that in deep view for you. But those are just a few ways that I'm looking for RS. But enough of that. Let's go ahead over to some individual names. And let's go to a weekly chart here in deep view. And then I've got the actual stocks I wanted to go through here in my Trade Lab report. Which, by the way, there's a holiday sale on the Trade Lab report. So if you want my daily ideas, weekly analysis, weekly trade opportunity case studies, as well as monthly model book studies, we just did one with Tesla where I went through all the way back in 2019, their earnings gap, all the way until the amazing move in 2021. If you want access to all of that, the link to that is down below in the description. And we've got a special holiday deal for that as well. But let's go ahead through these key names. Tesla, we talked about Tesla as well. Let's bring up Reddit. This, of course, acting really nicely off the 21 EMA. If we go to a weekly chart, if I can spell here, you can see this is, maybe ready for a base. It's acting well above the 10-week moving average. Nothing wrong at all with the weekly chart. Acting superbly well, just trending higher. Hasn't had a down week in quite some time. And, is acting perfect. This is the type of name that is showing RS and is a name that should be on your focus list to see if there's another way in. Today was a potential way in through this high, as well as just action off the open, but definitely a name to have on your radar if not already. MSTR, this one had a strong rally, and if you were ready at the open, you had a nice opportunity against the 50-day SMA, as well as the oops reversal through the prior day low. And it just rallied the rest of the day. But you do still have a pivot here set at this reversal high, and it's also lining up with confluence of the 21 EMA. We'll see if we get fall through to the upside through that. I'd love to see an inside day, a tight day, maybe a shakeout that closes well, and that would set up a nice move through that, versus if it goes Monday, you don't have a great way to manage risk. You manage risk at the low of the day, but it's not quite as, coiled as if we got a nice inside day or consolidation day, just like that. So we'll see what happens with this name. Obviously, Bitcoin kind of has to rally for this to move. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. PLTR is probably the standout true market leader right now. Great action holding the 10 EMA during this whole move. And then great action today. Again, another oops reversal. Could have bought it right here through the prior day low. Set your stop right below the low of the day. If it turns around, reverses, stops you out, you're out for a 1-2% loss. Not too bad. And it gives you a shot at a really nice leader that's still acting tremendously well and tremendously powerful overall. And let's go over to a weekly chart here on this one. Obviously, it broke out through all-time highs back in this area. Just been trending nicely above the 10-week moving average, a little bit short-term extended. There's some air to the 10-week here, but doing nothing wrong and just trending really nicely overall is PLTR. GEV, very nice action. You had a pivot through this high right here. You also had the 21 EMA pivot. We had a gap down and push through that. That would allow you to manage risk a little bit tighter. But overall, looking at the weekly, as we did prior, this looks pristine, very, very nice, very orderly, respect for the 10-week moving average, and potential setup for a breakout next week even. So nice upside reversal on the week, and definitely a name to have on your focus list for next week. For stock setting up, again, I'm looking for RS. I'm looking for respect for moving averages, prior pivots, tightness when the market is pulling back sharply. So all these names kind of fit that bill. CRDO, setting up a range here through that high. SMTC, you had a push through this pivot today, but faded a little bit, so still back within this range. This is a semiconductor name. MVCR, nice inside day as well, actionable through this inside day high. AVGO, this one did fade hard today, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on this one. It had a powerful move after the earnings gap and now needs to kind of set up the range for the U-turn to start. So I'd be watching this one very carefully as well. It's probably my top focus along with GEV for an entry next week. Really nice action and base breakout on huge volume with the potential catalyst of a new kind of technology of semiconductor. RBRK, another one I'm really focused on. It's pulling back into the HVC, has the confluence of this downward trend line, a little bit upside reversal action, so watching for follow through this DTL. And if we bring up RBRK, this is a recent IPO that, again, could definitely set up for one more week, 2 more weeks of consolidation, and that would be kind of the second base after this longer base that it had closer to its IPO. But definitely a name to have on your radar. Super strong trend, loves to respect that 21 EMA, so I wouldn't mind some chop and kind of a range to set up against that moving average. Moving on, Google, we already talked about. GME actually looks pretty nice. I love, again, a nice inside day to kind of manage risk a little bit tighter, but this has been showing RS, and this is part of a longer term pattern if we bring up GME. Let's go ahead. Oh, there we go. That actually brought it up. So this is part of a larger kind of cup and handle, and we'll just have to see what happens with this very volatile name. Know what you like to trade. If you don't like trading GMEs, stick with the liquid stuff for sure. Roblox, actionable today. Nice action. We'll see if it sets up a nice consolidation day to potentially let you in again. Asana, again, it's pulling back hard and kind of underperforming in the short term, but I loved this tight day and tight action here. And again, a recent gap up, a lot of momentum in here. So watching for the start of another U-turn, and we'll see if this kind of tight day signals the start of a turn or just it'll reconfirm lower. And in that case, you're waiting for the next setup. INTA, setting up a range near the 21 EMA. There's a lot of similar names to that. HIMS, I put this on here because although we did have a gap down, it's a little bit short term. I hate to use the word oversold because things can get a lot oversolder, but it's setting up a spot against a key level. This is the all-time high that set way back when, and you have a nice inside day, and it's consolidated this move down really nicely. So we'll see what happens. Not really my bread and butter setup, but I know some people like to take these type of more swing trade reversal type setups, so I wanted to include that there. Duolingo, watching for follow through that pivot. SQ, oops reversal today off the base pivot. If we bring up that weekly chart, we have nice respect, nice bounce off that level, and we'll see if it can fall through to the upside through that 21 EMA. VST, this kind of theme looks to be setting up. So we've got VST acting well, GEV acting well. If we bring up Oklo as well, this is more of a performance enhancer. Whippy one, if we go to a daily chart, this one moving up the right-hand side, some consolidation in the last 2 days, right at the moving averages. So NNE as well, very speculative name, but upside reversal. But VST is kind of the leader. Well, actually, GEV is the leader here, but VST is another name to watch, setting up a potential spot for a pop back through the 50-day moving average, as well as reclaim of this pivot. So we'll have to see what happens here, but definitely a name to at least have on your radar and watching it for a potential entry. Moving on, we've got BE. Actually, this isn't, no, that is right. Yeah. So this is BE again, setting up a same spot within that same theme and setting up a potential pivot right near that 21 EMA, watching for push higher on volume. Firm watching for a reclaim of this pivot as well as the 21 EMA. We did have a big sell bar here, but we'll see if we can reclaim this range and eventually break out through that level. Fintech in general is another theme I'm eyeing. We saw SQ earlier, and Affirm is kind of part of that spot, that list, that theme right there. App in the software space, another key theme. Nice actionable spot today here through this inside day high and right near the top of this range. So watching for fall through higher and a test of this prior all-time high. AVPT right near the 21 EMA, setting up a spot. KD as well, setting up a key pivot right there. So there's a lot of names that look like this. And if they break out and stick next week, that's a great sign that the market is more of a, in a short-term pullback mode versus there's going to be a longer correction. If these break out, fade, and roll over, that's another story. That would suggest we need a lot more time. So again, take that feedback. If you try any trades, see what feedback the market gives you and, adapt accordingly. Moving on, we've got Geo, tight range in the 21 EMA. It's tried a few times, hasn't been able to stick it, but we'll see if it can next week. Coin, again, if Bitcoin rallies, this is right at the 50 SMA. You've got a DTL, sharp DTL there, but we are below a declining 21 here. Just want to be aware of that. Bill, again, in the fintech space, it's got a pivot right here, compressed against a 21 EMA. NNE, we talked about. Tesla, we'll see if we get a bounce, gap and go here off this moving average, or does it leak below it? Again, that would be a sign that the market needs a little bit more time to digest, the gains that we've had, this extraordinary end to 2024. RKLB actionable today, again on the oops reversal through this low. Again, if you're not familiar with the oops reversal, basically it's a type of entry tactic that allows you to manage risk really nicely. It occurs when you get a gap below the prior day's low, and then you push sharply through that spot. That's the actionable pivot. And basically it allows you to manage risk at the low of the day. And if it works, the best ones go outside day. And if it doesn't, you're stopped out for a small loss. And you always want to use it in context of a strong stock, a strong overall chart pattern, maybe a short-term pullback to a key level. So you've got confluence of spots there. But basically that's the oops reversal. Definitely a powerful entry tactic to learn. And also in the fintech space, we've got LMND watching for a pop through that 21 EMA as well as this pivot right there. So key themes and leaders, software, AI, these are the key, leaders that I'm focused on here. And then, I have a quick tip about what I just shared about sorting by weekly closing range, percentage versus 21 EMA. And here are my kind of thoughts for, the market this week. I think next week is critical. We'll see if we get fall through to the upside, or do we just roll over and need a complete reset? Again, I'm completely objective. If that happens, I'll cut my starter positions and move on and just kind of wait for the next spots. But let me know your thoughts on the market down below. Again, if you're interested in the Trade Lab and want my thoughts, my focus list, what I'm watching every single day, there's no fluff. It's just charts and my commentary. You can sign up at the Trade Lab, and the link to that is down below in the description. It's currently the holiday sale, so it's a great time to join, and would love to have you over there. So thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, go ahead and leave a like down below, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.